Everybody, this is Sherry at djsundry.blogspot.com. Welcome to the Three Girl Jam and Jaded Blossom Monster Mash blog hop. Now I have a fun project for you today, and I'm going to give a little more explanation as we go along, but first let's just jump right in. So I want to show you some of the supplies that I used. To start with, I use my Prismacolors. Now these this is very new to me. I got them probably about a year or so ago, and I bought them from eBay, and then I wasn't quite sure how to use them. I've watched some YouTube videos, but this project is the first project I've ever made truly using these. I may have used them like for a little bit of coloring here and there, but truly using them correctly, this is the first time. So I'm using several colors here. These are the very thin ones, and I'm using True Green, Cool Gray, Parma Violet, Apple Green, Black, Aquamarine, Crimson Red, Pale Vermilion, Dahlia Purple, Pumpkin Orange, and just Orange. So I'll be using those colors, and with those I'm using my Gamsol. Now I did practice right before I made this particular image that I'm going to be showing you that I colored, but other than that, this is just like the second time I've ever used this, and this really made it pop. This worked really well for me. And of course I have my blending stumps. Then I also used from my Nestabilities, I used the Closeup Scallop Rectangles in the small, and I used one of those. I used my Ranger Archival Black ink. I'm using Mod Podge, and I have some black acrylic paint from Joann Essentials. And then the paper that I used was actually from my scrap stash, but I pulled out the pad that I got it out of. This is from the Tim Holtz Ideology paper stash. This is an older stash. In fact, looks like it was 2010 is when it was copyrighted, and I actually got 3 or 4 of these on clearance from Michael's, I think, a couple years ago, or a year and a half ago, or something like that. And I'm using some of the greens from that. So those are the non-blog hop supplies that I'm using. So now let's talk about what I'm using for the blog hop. We were provided with this set of Monster Mash stamps from Jaded Blossoms, and then this pile. Now it wasn't piled, it was more neatly wrapped, but I kind of burst into my bundles here, and I had 3 bundles. Now this is the Harvest bundle, and it comes with this. This is the Spooky bundle with the Goblin Green and the Witch's Brew, and then the Sterling and Tuxedo Black Celebrations bundle. And we could use any of these colors or any combination of such. Now I decided I wanted to make a special project for my son. As you all know, I don't really do much Halloween. I'm not into Halloween, don't like it. But I really thought that this stamp set was just adorable. My son is 13 and just got his very first paper out. Today was, he's had 4 days of it. Our local paper only goes 2 days a week. And last week, the first day, his dad went with him to make sure he did the route correctly. The second day, I went with him to make sure he did the route correctly. And then this week, he's been on his own. And so far, we haven't had any phone calls saying he missed anybody, so we'll see. But I decided to use the monster, and then one of the sentiments say, "You're out of this world." And so I wanted to make a project for him. Now I didn't tell him what I was doing other than just that I was making a project for him. So I had him come down and look at this ribbon. And it was kind of funny because he's colorblind, and he's like, "You really are asking me this?" Well, he thought I was doing a color match test, and I said, "No, I'm going to be making you a project. I want you to choose which colors you want me to use." And I said I can use 3 different colors. So from that, he chose one from each color, or one from each set, which is why I have them all here. He chose the Tuxedo Black, the Goblin Green, and the Harvest Orange. Now honestly, I would probably never have put those colors together, but he liked them, so this is what we're going with. And so let's move on to the project. What I am making for my son is an altered clipboard to carry on his newspaper route. That way he has, you know, if there's a stop or he has a little highlighted map that he just carries in his bag. And I thought it would be fun to have this, and then he could write himself notes, for instance, if there was a stop, and he would be less likely to lose the piece of paper if it was on a clipboard. So I had this little clipboard that I purchased somewhere a long time ago, and I covered the back with a solid sheet of that green paper from Tim Holtz, and I just used Mod Podge to put that on. Now the black paint that I was telling you about, I just used around the edges before I glued down any paper, and the reason I did that is because I didn't want any of the rough, you know, clipboard craft color to show. I wanted it to look finished, and so I did that with the black, and then I glued the back on, and I used my brayer to get it nice and smooth, and then I glued the front on. Now I was using a scrap piece, and it was a very large scrap piece, so what I did is it wasn't quite enough to cover the front, and so what I did is I used some of the strips on the sides and did strips. So this has like 2 different patterns going on here, all in the green. So that's all Mod Podged and ready to go. So now we're going to go to the next step. The next thing I did is I took that the Jaded Blossom Monster, and I stamped him with my archival ink, and I used those Prismacolors that I showed you to get him colored, and the Gamsol to get it all smoothed out, and I put him on the white cardstock that I have, and I'm using the Paper Tray ink Stampers, I can't remember what it's called, but it's the Stamper's Best or something like that from Paper Tray ink. And then I also stamped You're Out of This World. Now, because it was a kind of a first time practice thing for me, these were separate. So what I did is I just rough cut around the edges of my monster, and then I glued him down underneath the You're Out of This World, and then I cut it out with my Classic Scallop rectangles, and then I just used some of the orange and I just shadowed around the edge. You know, you could do this with ink, but I chose to do it with the colored pencils because it would be a better match for my monster. And I'm going to put him right in the middle. Now you will notice here that I'm not using any dimension, and the reason why is because it is an actual working clipboard, and I don't want to have too much dimension on that and make it to where he can't actually write on it. Now this monster would be adorable with Google eyes. He would be adorable with you know, stickles or glossy accents to give him some dimension. But because of the type of projects I'm making, I don't want any dimension on this. Now we're just going to stick that down really well. Now I have some rough edges kind of under my monster, and I'm going to stick that down. Now you notice I'm kind of messy with my Mod Podge, and there's Mod Podge over here. That's fine. Because I'm going to go over the whole thing and coat over the top to give it kind of a smooth finish. So I'm not too worried about that. While that's drying though, I am going to go ahead and give a layer of Mod Podge to the edge here. It will go over the black, and it looks kind of strange right now. If you've used Mod Podge, you know, however, that it dries clear. The reason I want to go by this edge is because this is something that he will use. And so I want it to, I don't want his, the pieces of paper to separate it from it the first time he gets out there and starts using it. So this will just kind of help seal that off, and then as it dries, it will be that Mod Podge. Now, if you like texture, which I recently did a project with altering some chalkboards, and I used the Mod Podge not only to glue it down, but and just to use it for some extra texture, because I like the texture that the Mod Podge provides. And you can do that too if you just want to go over all the back just to have that texture. You could even swirl it. Maybe I'll do that on the top, I don't know, but you could even swirl it and use different textures and things like that to just give your project interest. Mod Podge is just a lot of fun that you can do that. And I probably went off camera there, sorry about that. So this is just going to be Mod Podge there. Now if I get Mod Podge like I just did on the metal, I'm not worried. It'll work. It will wipe right off, and even if I miss it, I can go back. It will be pretty easy to separate that from the metal. and just clean it up, but I just want to have my edges good and sealed there. Now some of it got on the back. I'm not too worried about that either because it won't be noticeable because it dries clear. So that is the front. Now, or on the edges. Now on the front, though I am going to be adding texture, if you noticed here I had a big glump, and I don't want that glump. I don't want the glops and glumps to show. So I will go through and smooth those out. So that's just the first step. Now, I'm not going to Mod Podge over the top of it quite yet. We will give it a few minutes to do some drying on its own. It doesn't take it very long to dry, but I don't want to put the wet Mod Podge over the wet Mod Podge. I want it to dry at least a little bit before I go over the whole top, because I just want to be sure that that bottom layer has time to dry and not just look like it's dry. So I'll be back in just a bit and we'll finish up the clipboard. Okay everybody, we're back, and that is nearly dry, but I decided while it was finished drying, we're going to make a bag to put it in, kind of like a gift bag. Now this is going to be a very simple gift bag, and we're going to be using some of the same products plus more stamps from that set. So I went to my stash and I found this brown flat paper bag that I got at a yard sale quite a while back. And this is the original little figure that I had used my Prismacolors on the first time I'd ever really tried the shadowing and shading and stuff. And my original thought was I was just going to toss it, but I thought, oh, it's for my 13-year-old son. He'll never know the difference, and it would make this bag really cute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Mod Podge again, and to start with, let's just get this guy down. I don't want to mess up my bag, so let me put that aside. I want to really get him pretty gluey. And then let's clean that up here. And I've got a dry one. Okay, I'm going to put the bag here. I folded the bag over because it's larger than what I really need. So I'm going to put my little monster, and I don't know where I am camera wise, but I'll turn him this way so you can see him. I'm going to put him down in the corner right there, and then I'm going to grab my brayer because I want him to be really smooth, and I'm just going to use the brayer to bring him down and try to get him just as flat as I can get him. And I will expect that to dry very, very quickly. I see he's kind of coming up on the edges there. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just go around the edges with the Mod Podge, the edges that aren't already oozing from underneath, and just put some extra down around the edges, and then again brayer it back out again. Now there's a little bit of Mod Podge around the edge of the bag, but that won't hurt anything. I do, however, want to get it off my brayer before it dries. So I'll take care of that real quick off camera. And I'll clean that better in a little bit. Okay, so he's on there. Now I'm just going to set that aside, and I've pulled 3 other stamps from the stamp set. And I have here my a piece of my cardstock. Now I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, make sure there's room here. Yeah, I'm going to use the back side of that so I don't have any waste there. And we will get our archival black ink out. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this first stamp. This says Monster Eyes, eat at your own risk. Now I know that we're not eating anything, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do to change that in a minute. And it kind of has these funny tails hanging off of it, kind of to make it look spooky or like Frankenstein or something, I don't know. But that goes there. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky. I'm going to take my circle of eyeballs again from that stamp set, and I'm going to ink it really well. Now the tricky part is going to be placing it. Let me slide it down so I can see it. I want to place it so that it's not covered, covering any of the lettering, because that is just about a perfect fit there. And I want to be able, there we go, we did it. Perfect. So we'll place that there. And then I'm just going to set that aside. Now the other piece that I'm going to use is just this big old eyeball. Now this is for a separate area, so I'm going to just go off the side there because I don't need that for where I'm going to start. Okay, so my stamps are all clean. Now I'm going to cut that out, and I think I'm going to use my little Cutterbee scissors just because I like them a lot for this more fine detailed cutting. Let's get rid of this extra paper to start with, get it out of our way. And then I'm just going to cut that out. Now I've decided I'm really not going to probably even use color on this at all. I'm just going to leave it black and white. You could, if you wanted to, go in and put some little red because the little eyes look like bloodshot eyes. But I have another plan for that, and I forgot to get it out, but I'll show it to you when I get to there. So we're going to cut that all out, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back and I'm ready to finish off this, the gift bag. So let me show you what I've done. This was the part that I forgot. I went back into my stash and I found these really teeny tiny googly eyes. Now, I really liked these when I bought them. And then after I bought them and I put them on a project, I think it was like a Create a Critter project or something like that. I'll tell you, it kind of creeped me out a little bit. I thought those are really creepy looking eyes. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because the bead on the inside is so tiny. But I like googly eyes. I think they're fun. And they're great great things to add to projects for kids. But they were these particular googly eyes were a little bit creepy for me. So I haven't really used them that much. I usually use some larger googly eyes that I have. But I thought, oh, this is perfect for this project. So I'm just using my glossy accents here to stick down my little eyes. And then what I've done, we'll let that sit like that. What I've done is I've chosen 2 of the 3 colors. I didn't get the black this time of the ribbon. And I'm going to put one of these down here. And I'm going to put this up here just like this. Now before I glue anything, there's one more thing I want to do. I think I'm going to go with red. And on that marker won't work. Let's use this red. This is a Zig Rider red. Instead of saying E, I'm going to cross it out with the red, and I'm going to say open. Open at your own risk. So you can just alter stamps to make them do what you want them to do, and that's what I did for this time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, this is where this is going to go. And I'm going to take this piece of green, and before I glue down my monster eyes, I'm going to glue down this little bit of green, goblin green ribbon from 3 Girl Jam, and that's just going to go right like that. And then we'll turn this guy over, and I'm going to use quite a bit glossy accents here because I do not want him coming off. Plus, that will also help hold my goblin green ribbon down. I'm just going to put that over the top and smush it down. Now I know you've got some coming out. Again, glossy accents dries clear just like Mod Podge does, so I'm not worried about that at all. So we'll clean off my fingers. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this bottom eye. Now it's going to be just a tad bit trickier because that eye is not very big, but that's okay. It'll still work. I'm going to just trick right there. Just put that little bit of glue, hold that into place, and then we'll just glue that down, getting enough so it'll hold into place, and then enough to cover up the tail of my ribbon, and then we'll let that dry. And then when we're all done, we'll tie these together to make the closure of the bag. So let's move back to our our clipboard and get that finished up. put the glossy accents away. By now this has had enough time to dry so that I feel like we could move on to our next steps. So now for the last step this step, I'm just going to go over the top of the whole project with the Mod Podge. Now, I don't want any big lumps on my project, but I don't mind having brush strokes and texture. In fact, after I brush it on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give this a little bit of a swirly texture. So what I'm doing, again, I'll show you again, is I'm pulling it across everything, across the top of my little monster here, across the top of my frame, across everything, but of course not the silver clip part, because we don't want to glue the clip down because that won't help anything. And then as that's before it dries, then I'll go back over and again swirl it over. It won't be noticeable texture, but I'll know it's there, and I just like the extra texture that it adds. So finish that up there. Now I'm sure that you are wondering where the 3 Girl Jam ribbon comes in to my clipboard, because obviously my clipboard here is my main project. The bag was just kind of an added afterthought. Well, don't worry, because after this dries, I'll show you exactly where the 3 Girl Jam ribbon is going. And it also will show you that, hey, this is for a boy, but that's okay. You can use ribbon on a boy's project and it still won't look too girly for a 13-year-old boy. So we've got quite a thick coat of Mod Podge there. So we are going to let that dry, and when I come back, we'll finish up the project. Okay, so now the Mod Podge is pretty much dry, and I have to tell you, after I went off camera, I couldn't resist adding a couple of Google eyes using that Mod Podge to glue it down. I thought it made the whole thing kind of look like a monster head, and I figured up there it's not going to interfere with the writing. So now you're probably wondering, where in the world are we going to put the 3 Girl Jam ribbon? I know I used it on the bag. That was just kind of the afterthought. So this is what I've done with the 3 Girl Jam ribbon. I took the 3 colors my son picked out, the black and the green and the orange, and I braided it, and on the end I tied an ink pen. And what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to come through the hook of the clipboard, just like so, come around and tie a big fat loopy knot right, well, I guess it's not too big, right there, just like that. Sorry, I'm right in the frame here. So that he can have his pen with him and not lose it. So that's where I added the 3 Girl Jam ribbon. So we have our little clipboard here with our You're Out of This World monster on it. You lift that up so you can see it a little bit better. And our 3 Girl Jam ribbon. And then to put it all in, to gift wrap it, I did this little bag that says Monster Eyes. And if you remember correctly, I altered that and said open at your own risk. Glued it down with the 3 Girl Jam ribbon, and that will just tie just like this and have a nice big bow there. I didn't use any black in that combo right there. And then we have another little monster down here at the bottom. Now, I am not quite done with this project, but that's it for YouTube. Are you interested to find out what else I did? There's one more little thing that I wanted to do to complete this project, but the only way you can find it is to go to my blog at www.djsundry.blogspot.com, and you'll see the finishing touch to this project. Now also, if you start at 3 Girl Jam, and that's the numeral 3 GIRLJAM.blogspot.com, and you can hop through this whole hop and see all the other monstrous projects out there today. So thanks for stopping by, and have a great day.